Imagine a financial system where organized crime doesn't hide underground. It sits at the same table with CEOs, politicians, and bankers. It makes deals, finances companies, and shapes markets. It sounds like a movie, but for a long period in modern Japan, this wasn't fiction. This was the reality of the Yakuza. Popular culture portrays them as tattooed, finger-missing, cigarette-smoking gangsters. But the real face of the Yakuza runs much deeper. They were not just a criminal organization. They were also economic actors. They built massive structures that operated like corporations, invested money, and managed cash flows. They combined street power with boardroom strategy. This is not only Japan's story. It's a warning about what can happen when crime, finance, and politics intertwine. Their roots go back to the 17th century. Gamblers, peddlers, people pushed to the margins of society. They offered protection, credit, and belonging to the excluded of feudal Japan. Small gangs gradually turned into a parallel economy. By the 19th century, they controlled gambling dens, loan sharking, and smuggling routes. They were not merely parasites feeding on the economy, they were part of the system. Where access to official credit was difficult, they lent money. Where the law was weak or corrupt, they enforced contracts through violence. In a distorted way, they functioned like financial intermediaries. The real turning point came in the 20th century. After World War II, Japan was devastated. The black market exploded. Food, fuel, and foreign goods changed hands illegally. Who organized this chaos? The Yakuza. They amassed wealth through smuggling, lending, and regulating markets. For many Japanese, doing business with the Yakuza was not a choice, it was a matter of survival. The state was weak, they filled the vacuum. Then something interesting happened. As Japan recovered, the Yakuza didn't disappear, they evolved. They began presenting themselves as businessmen. Syndicates like Yamaguchi-gumi operated from offices with reception desks, issued membership cards, and built corporate hierarchies. They invested in construction companies, real estate firms, and the entertainment industry. They collected debts for corporations, broke strikes, and cleared land. Was it clean? No. But it was fast and profitable. As the Japanese economy boomed in the 1960s and 70s, the Yakuza embedded themselves even deeper into the system. They built influence across a wide range of sectors, from entertainment to real estate. During the massive real estate bubble of the 1980s, they played big. There was such madness in Tokyo that, according to some estimates, the land beneath the Imperial Palace was said to be worth more than all of California. Banks were handing out credit, companies were growing on debt, and everyone believed the rise would last forever. For the Yakuza, it was like paradise. They bought land and forced tenants out, accumulated shares and blackmailed executives, and coerced companies into deals they wanted. Through the practice known as Sakaya, they bought small stakes in companies, attended shareholder meetings, and extorted hush money by threatening to expose executive secrets. For large corporations, this became the cost of doing business. Banks often turned a blind eye. Some didn't want to lose profits, some were afraid. Some even knowingly extended credit to Yakuza-linked projects. The line between white-collar finance and organized crime blurred. As long as money was flowing, nobody wanted to ask questions. By the mid-1980s, Yamaguchi-gumi, was said to have tens of thousands of members and assets worth billions of dollars. Their influence stretched from Hawaii to Southeast Asia. They were no longer just players in Japan, but actors in international finance. Politics was in the mix as well. The Liberal Democratic Party remained in power for decades. Yakuza-linked donations and support were an open secret. In return, there was protection, access to contracts, and tolerance. Scandals broke out, but the system kept running. As long as the economy was growing, no one wanted to confront the shadows. Until the bubble burst in 1989. Real estate collapsed, the stock market fell, and trillions of dollars in paper wealth vanished. For Japan, the lost decade began. For the Yakuza, it was both crisis and opportunity. Some of their investments burned, but they became even more influential in debt collection, bankruptcy processes, and forced asset liquidations. They acted like crisis managers. In the 1990s, the state finally passed tough laws. Companies were banned from doing business with the Yakuza. Banks were pressured. Membership numbers began to fall from the peaks seen since the 1960s. But this was not an end. It was a transformation. Branded offices were shut down. In their place came shell companies, intermediaries, and offshore accounts. As pressure increased inside Japan, activities shifted abroad. Casinos in Macau, real estate in Hawaii, investments in Southeast Asia. They formed partnerships with structures like Chinese triads and the Russian mafia. Just as globalization accelerated legitimate finance, it also accelerated organized crime. Today, the methods have changed. Cybercrime, online fraud, money laundering through cryptocurrencies. But the logic is the same: where money flows, crime follows. Regulation is weakest where the system is most vulnerable. The Yakuza story shows us this. Crime and capitalism are not opposites. Sometimes, they are like twins. When the system is slow, rigid, or unprofitable, crime offers speed, liquidity, and ruthlessness. For those who want results, this is attractive. And this is not unique to Japan. In Italy, the mafia operates in construction and waste management. In Latin America, cartels move through banks and real estate. In the United States, white-collar crime and lobbying create similar gray zones. The labels change, but the mechanics are the same. When money, power, and influence merge, the law bends. So what's the lesson? No financial system is as clean as it appears. Peel back the layers of respectability, and you often find networks operating by different rules. The Yakuza institutionalized this in a visible way. But the principle is universal. When money and power concentrate, crime does not stay outside the system, it blends into it. That's why the issue is not exotic curiosity about Japanese gangsters. It's about recognizing the shadows in your own country. Lobbying networks, shadow banking, offshore accounts. History doesn't repeat itself exactly, but it rhymes. The Yakuza's journey from street gambling to becoming players in global finance tells us this. When crime merges with capitalism, and society accepts it as just the way business is done, the shadows begin to run the system. And the most dangerous empires are sometimes built not with weapons, but with balance sheets. If this perspective opened a new window for you, start reading history more carefully. Because the answers have always been there.